So it almost sounds like you're devoting your life in a way to art in a full
I
sense.
did, but I didn't know what to call it. I always did.
Maybe we could say you're an artist.
Maybe you can say it, but I won't believe you.
Welcome to Creative Insanity. Creative Insanity.
Hi, my name is Servant. I am a rap artist, producer, and other things from Edson, Alberta. And today, for my 24th and final episode of Season 1 for Creative Insanity, I got to speak to Juliette Fogra. Julia is a Brooklyn-based illustrator, designer, and maker of fine art. Her artwork is profound, very well done, very unique, and it always strikes a chord with me. She's one of those people who can make art that stares back at you. The kind of work that can sit in your living room for 20 years and it still gives you pause. In this conversation, we discuss what it actually takes to be a true artist, the nature of art, life as art, and we confront many orthodox maxims about creativity in thoughtfully circuitous and reflective ways. We do a lot of thinking and digging in this conversation, and I must admit some of her answers totally threw me off guard. There's just something very mysterious about her, and I really loved this conversation. Some important contextual information for you. She grew up in the Soviet Union with very good parents, but a terrible, terrible society, to put it mildly. She immigrated to Israel when she was a teenager and later on to New York. Another thing, she references a dude named Jordan in this podcast a few times, and if you don't know what that's about, his name is Jordan Peterson. I actually had his wife Tammy on my podcast previously. Somewhat recently, Julia won an opportunity to do the artwork for the inside of Jordan's latest book, and she did a fantastic job, and she was featured on his podcast as well. So a lot of people know her through this particular thing, but her work is vast in scope, immensely well done, deeply engaging, and I highly recommend that you follow her on Instagram and go buy her art. As I said, this has been my Season 1 finale. I've done a lot of exploring, a lot of learning in this podcast, not just learning from others, but learning how to do a podcast, how to have conversations, and I hope I'm getting better at it. That said, I'm busy as all crap. I do video work, and my summer is slammed, so I'm going to call this Season 1, 24 beautiful episodes, and I'm going to return in the fall with a brand new season with more guests. That said, I hope you subscribe, maybe leave a nice comment for my guest, and share this with people who would enjoy it. Now let's slap into it. So first of all, I should say, Juliette Fogra, welcome to Creative Insanity.
Thank you.
I'm happy that you're here. I wanted to dive into a big question to start with you, and that is, what do you think an artist is, and do you think you're one of them?
So art. An artist. I have a slight problem with how the artists use these days, because I think many people do art, but they have no right to call themselves artists until they prove it, until all their life is behind them, until all their life was spent on becoming an artist. So calling yourself an artist is kind of a luxury. You can be a painter, you can be an illustrator, but you can do art. You can do all these things, but to call yourself an artist, you really have to work on it all your life. And maybe you'll succeed.
Maybe. See,
Maybe.
That's what I like about that is it is tough. It's aspirational. It's the kind of thing that you strive towards, not necessarily a label you apply to yourself willy-nilly like a sticker. You don't just say, well, I've done some art, so I am an artist. I think that there's like maybe a small A artist that's maybe applicable, like in a technical sense, have you done art? But I think you're right in having some differentiation there. It's a big deal to call yourself an artist.
I think so.
What do you?
And I'm not calling myself an artist. I'm not calling myself anything right now. I just do some illustrations. I do some art. I hope to be there to call myself an artist, or for somebody to call me an artist.
What do you think that would look like for you? Well, like what else would be different in your life for you to call yourself an artist?
You have to dedicate all your life to doing art.
Well, that's hard.
That's hard. That's the task. Then you're a real artist. That's a test. Do you want to be? Do you want to dedicate your life, all your life, to art? You're not necessarily getting better. You're just living your life as an artist.
Do you
in
believe
every area, I think. I think in every area.
I was going to say, do you believe that life is art or that it can be art?
It can be art. I think it is. It is for me, definitely, in every area. In cooking, in cleaning, in raising children, from A to Z.
So it almost sounds like you're devoting your life in a way to art in a full
I
sense.
did, but I didn't know what to call it. I always did.
Maybe we could say you're an artist.
Maybe you can say it, but I won't believe you.
Well,
also art. Many people say that art is some form of they're using this word, escapism, as an escape. And I get it, but I don't like the word. I would like to replace it with relief. It's some kind of form of relief from reality, not escape. And we need both. I think we need the reality the way it is. We need to be not naive about it. And we talk about reality a lot. We talk about it all the time because the language is built in a way that we can express reality. And for everybody, it's different. But there is another level that we experience that we cannot express in words. And I think that's what I'm trying to do, to get to that place and to get a glimpse of that place and maybe pause it for a second. Pause it for a second, if I get it, by the tail. That's the glimpse of this thing that I experience mostly in dreams. I dream a lot. Every night I dream. The whole night, every single night. There was no night that I wasn't dreaming. So I feel like I'm living in two different realities. This reality, and I'm living actually at nights in my dreams. And I'm trying to get a glimpse of that experience. It feels very, very different.
That's interesting. Actually, I had another artist in conversation one time named Nicole Wolf, and she described it very similarly. She said that it was like going to another dimension and wanting to harvest little things and tidbits from that dimension and then bring it to the world somehow. That was what she saw it like. And
yeah, it's impossible. It's completely impossible. You get a glimpse of it and you lose it instantly within seconds, and you can't return.
That sounds almost like a drug, like a kind of thing that you're after, like a hit, something that you can.
But I'm experiencing it. I just can't get a glimpse of it. I can't express it. I am experiencing it on the back of my mind while being here.
What do you think most people think of that sentiment? Do they understand it?
No. That's what artists and musicians do. I think they're trying to get a glimpse of it and bring it to the world.
Who does that successfully, in your view? Do you have any?
Musicians. No, many people, but I can tell musicians. Sting did it. Sting. The Strokes.
Oh yeah, the Strokes.
Peter Gabriel did it. Tori Amos.
I'm not as familiar with that one.
Well, she's a female. Maybe that's why.
Well, I don't think so. Actually, most of the artists I listened to were women growing up. I think I liked female artists in particular because I grew up around brothers and I didn't really have women in my life, and they were this thing that I desperately wanted to be around and understand, but didn't maybe get enough up close exposure to it when I was young. So I sought it out, film, TV, friendships that I was after. I think even now to this day, I'm very fascinated by femininity, whatever the hell that is, you know?
That's very surprising to me because it's all about, I'm the other way around. I was surrounded by men all my life. All my friends, real friends, were men. I love men so much and I aspire to men so much. So all of my role models are men. And it's not like I'm trying to dismiss females. I just can't pinpoint who would be my role model because there is none. I can maybe name a few artists who are amazing. That's Bjork.
Yes.
Bjork.
Yes.
And Tori Amos. And this is it.
Oh, man.
Joni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell, yeah. See, I think I think I know what you mean in terms of this distinction between like, you know, artist and real artist, you know, like what that means. Because, you know, even me thinking in my mind of some of the singer-songwriters that I listen to, you know, there's almost like a kind of hierarchy that I create. Like some are like good for a kind of entertainment and then there's others that touch the soul or do something so profound that I don't know what to do with it. Regina Spektor, actually, she's from Brooklyn as well. She's one for me that I really, really like.
I've heard the name. I have to check her out.
Yeah, she's a wonderful female artist. She does Regina Spektor, yeah, and it's Spektor spelt with a K, so Spektor. Yeah, I actually did a song about her in my early days as an artist on my first album because, you know, she's not hip hop whatsoever. She's singer-songwriter. In fact, she might have a lot in common with you. I'm trying to think, but I think she was from Russia, and I think she immigrated as a small child.
Spektor?
Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong, but she came to Brooklyn very small, and then she developed her craft, and she's written like, you know, hundreds of songs, and she's performed at big opera houses. Anyway, so she's someone who's really, I would say in my mind, musical artist with a capital A.
Yeah.
And then there's other singers that, you know, I certainly wouldn't name, but that I would have listened to and encountered growing up that I guess I'd put in a different category. I wouldn't say it's a reflection of their value as a human being, but in the world of art and what is maybe held as the biggest deals to me, yeah, there's something different about that. There's certain people who have it and maybe some people who don't. And maybe we don't know if they have it until they've been doing it for years and years.
I think they found a way to catch this thing by its tail. They're successful with that.
Yeah.
Catch the dragon and bring it here to us.
Are you familiar with Flannery O'Connor at all?
No.
That's okay. She was a writer. I think she was an American Southern writer, and she died quite young in her 30s in 1964 from lupus, I believe. Good, yeah. And she had a very interesting career as a writer. She wrote a lot of influential work and stuff that was really off-kilter, disturbing. But she had a series of letters that I read between her friends, and she had such wise words about things. And she told a story of one of her friends. So that's a long walk to a small pond, I'm sure. But she told this story about a writer who would be out in the field working. I don't remember who she was referring to. And the muse would come by and they would know it. And it would go overhead somehow and it'd try to be getting away from them. And they would run and run and run and catch it.
I think I heard.
Literally by the tail.
Yeah, by the tail.
And so she said she would catch it just at the end and kind of pull it in and write a poem on the spot. Like she would go get her pen or whatever. And she said the thing is, by catching it by the tail, all the words would come out backwards.
So cool. That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
You have to translate it then. So you catched it, you see it. You can think of it, but then you have to translate it. That's the task.
Yeah. And I think translating it it's hard. I know, like, as a musical artist, there's something I encountered in studio with other performers where we've collaborated, and sometimes we come to the philosophy of try to let the song write itself, right? So like, let's pretend that I don't have an ego here. Let's pretend you don't have an ego. Let's step outside. What's going to make this song best, and try to channel something. And it's such a mysterious process. But when it happens and it works, I think I feel so good. Equal parts dumbfounded though. And how did that happen? You know?
Yeah, I can relate, but I don't have the ego problem at all. I don't have this thing. I will step out. There's a bigger thing than I am, and I'm just a tool. I don't have a problem with it. That's how I worked with Jordan many times. I would just collect information, visual information. And then I'll let it not speak for itself. I'll let it happen, just happen without me involved. What can these details, how can they attach into something I'm not even planning on it. Let's see what happens. And I'm there to watch. And it's always something magical. There's never been a moment in my life when I'll drag some many details and not something magical would happen on its own.
Magical is the word for it.
Yeah, I don't want to take over it. I'm ruining it.
That's interesting. See, I wonder if we approach it slightly differently, or if my understanding is a bit amateur, because I feel like I connect with what you said, and that is something that I do as an artist, is I do remove myself from the thing, and I'm able to kind of just witness what's happening. But I also sometimes do get in the craftsman kind of mindset, like as a lyricist and rap, sometimes the lines just come, and then other times I'm critical, very critical of them, and I rewrite sometimes and reframe, and I'll get to the end. For me, like if I'm catching the muse for a song, I will start working on it, and then I'll finally come to contact with the muse midway through it, and the moment the lightning bolt has happened, and I realized just, wow, this is what it's about. And so then I get to the end and realize that the beginning was just crap, and I have to to alter it, and I have to work with it to have the full unit speak for itself, like as a craftsman. So I feel like there's maybe two levels to it somehow. It's like we're tools, but maybe we can be either sharper or duller as a tool, and there's something in our control there. Yeah.
I also think that analytical thought and visual art is two different things. I speak for visual art only, not for music.
Okay,
so with visual art, I actually have details. I don't have to be involved. My job is to collect the right amount, the right flair. My job is to collect and then see what happens.
And you do a very good job of it. I
don't. They do a great job.
Well, and you're frustratingly mysterious about it, because I know there's been times, I follow you on Instagram, and you've posted something, and I think one time I said, "How did you do this?" And your answer was, "Not telling." And I was like, "Well, okay, I guess." But I thought, well, maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she doesn't know how she did it.
Oh, I do.
See, that's. Do you enjoy keeping what mystery you can keep about the process?
Yeah.
Why do you like that?
I'm very secretive. Who knows? I've always been that way. I didn't like, from the very beginning, I didn't like when people looked at me. I just wanted my own space, which I never had.
That seems like with you removing yourself, like no ego in this thing, that's like the same thing. Like looking at a piece of art and there's no you there, there's just the art.
Yes. Let me try to elaborate on that. I had many thoughts about my childhood lately. So many people would say they were born into a certain situation and they would normalize the situation, and they couldn't find out who they are until very late 30s, 40s. With me, it was very, very different. I was born into a very difficult situation, but I always knew who I am from the very beginning. You couldn't kill it. I just knew who I am from the age of 2 or 1. As long as I remember myself, I knew exactly who I am, and I knew everything is wrong. I just knew it. And I was going crazy because I was living in a world where everything is wrong. When people treating me wrong, when they say wrong things, when they expect wrong answers, everything was wrong. So I sort of lived outside of myself just to try and save what I had, to try and save what I had, what I knew. And I knew I would forget. The time would pass, and I was afraid I would forget who I am. And somehow I didn't. It took me 40 years. Where was I getting? What was the question? It was to do with, help me with that.
I made an observation just about removing the ego and how you look directly at the art.
Yeah. So how I looked at the art was there from the very beginning.
That's interesting. Well, I wonder what part was in response to your circumstances, because, your circumstances for us North Americans were very atypical, and not really in a good way, I would say, based on what I know. It seems like there was a lot of hardship. And if you wanted to protect yourself from that, like, what an interesting thing. I guess I don't know what to say about that. Like, I feel like I can picture that as a moment, just a small child trying to keep herself from the world. And that strikes me as very sad, actually.
I was very sad. But within me, I knew there's something I need to protect. So I didn't want anybody to look at me, to get into, I was talking about the space. There was no space around me. And I needed desperately the space where this thing inside of me can live on and happen.
Right.
I don't know how I protected it. I don't know how I survived this, but I'm there now where I was at 2.
Well, it's amazing. I wonder, like, do you think that this protection is, like, in what way is it helping you?
With art, I can express myself finally. I can express whatever I protected, whatever I was born with. And I knew I was born with it. I was very, very different from everybody else. First of all, my language was not a spoken language. I just rejected it. I don't know if it's to do with Soviet upbringing. It could be a reason that I was just, it was like some sort of defense mechanism. I'm not going to speak. I'm not going to understand. I'm not going to try to be part of that. Maybe it was something like that. But my language was musical and visual, I suppose. Yeah. So at the age of 7, I was signed into music school, and that would build my brain in a certain way. This multi-layered perception of anything at all, because classical music, left hand, right hand. Yes. When you're 7, not 14, you're a kid. So that built my music, taught me how to think.
Wow.
Not language. And then I was translating, all my life I was translating my thinking process into words, the other way around. It doesn't work so well. People do not understand what I'm saying at all.
Maybe not always. maybe not always, but the reverse. So that would be like you thinking in pictures and then having to decode them into language that you've learned through like rote memory, like that you've had to.
Yeah. And a different language also. I came to America when I was 23. That's very late to learn a new language. It's late for anybody. And for me, can you imagine this resistance to any kind of language? English is very musical. It's my favorite language of all. Not French, not English.
Really?
Yes.
You don't hear that very often. I think I agree with you, but I'm probably highly biased being it the only language I do speak. But I do love the English language. I love that there's such wide, even without altering a single word, like there's so much you can do with tonality, inflection, pause. Like there's so many layers.
Yes.
It is very much like music. And
It's
I think
musical.
some people are more in tune with that than others. To some, it's like they're using the English language like they're basically just slapping the piano keys and it gets out there. And then other people seem to be more methodical in how they speak, and they're aware that it's a kind of art form in and of itself.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting to me that, well, for one, at 20...
Would you mind?
Not at all. Please, light up. I don't mind at all. I've got coffee. My only regret is there's no Baileys in it. That would have been nice.
I love Irish coffee. Close.
Yeah, this is Irish cream. Like it literally says that on the container. So it's not real Irish cream, I'm sure. I wonder about, well, so I'm picturing myself in your shoes a little bit. Like you're 23 years old. I was actually trying to learn Russian at that time, paradoxically. Why? You ask with your with your response.
Why would anybody do that?
I think
I understand why.
Well, it was a challenge, I think, for one. I didn't learn very much, and I think I can say one thing. Tell me if this sounds like anything. Okay. Vy vygleditia velikolepna.
Nice. Very nice.
I said it?
I even know what you said. Yes.
Right on. Well,
perfect.
Do I know what I said, though?
Bad boy. How dare you?
This is the only thing that I know how to say. And, I learned that because it was a YouTube tutorial, and it was a very pretty blonde woman who was teaching the language. And I was like, oh, I should learn. But it lost favor with me because, I'm busy and I started to have kids and such. And I wasn't so serious about it. I wasn't going to go to Russia. But so anyway, you're in this place where you're turning language from pictures into words. And do you struggle with that still?
Yes. I'll always struggle with it. Why? Because one picture worth 1,000 words. How can I come up with 1,000 words? One picture that I see. There's a time problem.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You're very limited.
I can create, how many pictures can I create per day? Complicated ones, probably 2. If I work then day and night. So it's 2,000 words. Is it worth it? I don't know.
Well, I think in many ways that expression's inaccurate too, because it's more than 1,000. In fact, sometimes it's infinite. You can't actually use words to describe, like you can use words, I think, to complement what you see. They can be hand-in-hand art forms. I think that's the beauty of music. It's like cover art on an album. There can be something very special about it. But one form does not replace the other form.
Yes.
Each form seems to exist solely able to express itself best, It's like trying to understand a lecture, telling your friend about a lecture that you heard through like tap dance or something. Like you're switching mediums and they'll be like, oh, it was a, you know.
Yes, I know.
But you work with these alternate art forms as well, because I know you like to work with musical artists.
Mhm.
And in fact, I know as well you like to do your art while listening to music very frequently, right?
Yes. I finally I figured out why. Because music would take me to this space.
Oh,
It's not to turn my head away from it. No, it's about getting there, a shortcut. So it wouldn't work every day. It can't work every time. Depends on music, depends on where I am.
mm-hmm.
So if I'm lucky that day, it would take me somewhere near that place.
And you feel as if this place, the place of your dreams, do you feel that that is as real as you and I sitting with
Yes,
cameras between us right now?
yes. I'm
I
not sure what's more real.
That's interesting. And see, I think I agree. I don't have as vivid a dreams. I have periods where I dream a lot.
Mhm.
And then I have times that I'm not sure I do dream. And I don't know why, but I've told myself I'm not as much a visual thinker. I wonder if that has something to do with it. I you were on a podcast with Michaela Peterson where I think she had asked you, do you think in pictures or words? And she had asked a few different artists, or people who aspire to be artists, that very question, right? And we got a variety of answers. And I was thinking about how I would answer that. And I didn't know. It was like, well, words lead to pictures, lead to words for me. Like, I don't know which one starts. I don't know how to separate them. But you have a clear separation somehow.
Yeah, and I'm not lucky.
Not lucky.
Not lucky. I would love to think both. I'm struggling a lot in translating. It takes time. It takes so much effort. My head is constantly working double as yours. I'm getting tired.
Well, I think some of the best gifts we get are often like curses as well, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So I think that you have this thing.
yeah.
I do feel as if it influences your art. It must, right?
It must. Yep.
But it also in some ways makes speaking a challenge, makes talking and expression in that form a challenge. I wonder sometimes
That's
if
why
life,
it's so interesting why people, it's very, very interesting how people comment in. People think they shouldn't, but I'm very, very curious and very interested in what people have to say about what they see. Because they are the ultimate translators, not me.
yeah, okay, so that's really interesting. You use them as like Google Translate for you.
Yeah.
You plug them in and then you see what comes out.
And you were excellent at that, by the way,
Oh, thank you.
lately.
I I really like your art. Like when you post to Instagram and other places that I see it, I know you have immense intentionality behind it. And I'm not sure if I sense that you know, aren't always great at articulating it, but I seek, maybe it's my combination of words and pictures or something, like I seek to try to articulate it. I want to
Yeah.
understand it. What does this mean with, you know, you sitting in this old beaten up drawer? What does that represent? It kind of makes me pause. And I think that you're one of the artists. We'll use that with a small a for you if it makes you feel better. You're
Graphic designers.
okay. One of the designers, illustrators, or magicians. You're one of them that actually turned me on more to paying attention to visual art.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I hadn't had many artists on my podcast. Like I hadn't been having conversations, but I think like I started following your stuff right around the time that I was like, I want to understand these people. How is it that they do these things? Why do they do these things?
Mhm.
It's so baffling to me. And that you don't have the language to necessarily understand it either makes this like some kind of double mystery, you know? Like you're a mystery looking at a mystery.
I'm within a mystery, within a mystery, within a
Yeah.
mystery. Yeah, I'm completely a Russian doll. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this, and there is no bottom.
No. Do you
No.
think it would be better if there was a bottom? If you could find the understanding? Or is the mystery some kind of joy in of itself?
If I'm losing a mystery, I'm losing my life.
What do you mean by that?
That's what life is for me. I can't lose it. There has to be no bottom to this. I want to be this never endless Russian doll.
Just so I know I understood the metaphor, that's where they come out of each other, smaller and smaller.
Yeah. Those, they call them Russian dolls, right? Babushkas, I don't know what they
Babushkas,
call them.
yeah. Well, it's a Russian. I got the idea anyway. It was that word connected to
it's
the picture in your mind. So
the mystery within a mystery within a mystery. There's no end to it. It's a black hole.
yeah, I feel the same way. And I used to think that inspiration, for instance, or communication with the muse, whatever that is, I used to think that it was a kind of finite resource. It was something like, well, I'm artsy because I have some communication with this, but I'm only going to get so much. And I don't really think of it that way anymore. I really do see it as infinite. And it's about augmenting my life to best facilitate reciprocity with it, communication back and forth with it. I wish that, and I think there's a lot that I've done and I've learned to do as with who I am to better communicate over the years. You, as a small child, seem to have this instinct. Have you, as you've developed more in your craft and tried different things, do you feel as if you're somehow better at communicating or receiving messages or getting into this dimension?
Oh yeah. I know by my dreams. I used to dream once in a while, then it increased, and now it's every day, and now it's a few dreams per night, every single day, no matter how tired I am.
That's bizarre. Huh. That's bizarre.
I know. I know. I spoke to people. Nobody says the same thing.
I know some people who dream a lot, but I don't know if that frequently. I had another guy on my podcast named Daniel Grove, a photographer who also does some design work and graphic design and stuff. And he often shares his dreams because he always has these crazy, wild dreams. And he's someone I think of who dreams a lot, and he's very artistic. And then I have my brother. He dreams a lot, and he's always writing his dreams. He's always journaling them. He's like taking notes on them.
To me, it's such a mystery. How can people remember their dreams? Write them down in words.
Oh, wow. So yeah. So, that's
To
it.
me,
Yeah.
those dreams are those dragons. I wake up and I have those glimpses and they disappear within seconds.
See,
It's really bizarre. It's like sparkle. I saw it and I don't remember what it was a second later.
that is very interesting. Yeah. Some people maybe aren't as, I don't know what it is.
There are no stories in my dreams. There's no sequence of events.
I get stories.
Wow.
I get narrative. I also get lucid dreaming sometimes, which is,
What does that mean?
it's the ability to dictate what's happening in the dream.
I think that's what I'm doing.
Really?
I'm creating my dreams.
But through your primary language, which is the visual.
They're not happening to me. I'm writing them. I feel like I'm creating them at night, every single night.
Okay, so here's a question. do you feel as if this other dimension, this other world, do you think that this somehow exists within yourself, or is it somehow
Yes.
beyond yourself?
Beyond myself.
But also within you, somehow.
I'm connected. And I think we all are. I don't want to get spooky with it.
Let's get spooky.
I don't want to get all magical about it. There is this different dimension, and I'm trying, and I have the connection. I think we all do. I'm just noticing. I'm just, it just gets my attention.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
Cool.
think you're predisposed for it. There is, you know, they say, why is a person the way they are? People will say, well, it's genetics. You know, their parent was this way. And then other people say, well, it's environment. They were raised this way. They were in this environment. And I think it's a combination of those things and a third factor. It is, yes, in part genetics. It is, yes, in part environment. And it's also the X factor, them. That
I
is,
feel the same way.
yeah.
And I can even testify that the environment doesn't play a role in it.
Yeah, you would have a very strong case for that.
Right?
Right. Because of your... How old were you
Yeah.
when you had some more North American normalcy? Like, when did that come? Not to say North America's perfect, but...
It's perfect. It's totally perfect. Normalcy a year ago. But I felt that it's normal when I arrived. I was just still dragging this baggage, and I had to unpack, and I had to battle so many battles at the same time. So I was in this place where this thing that happens right now is possible, but I was just not ready. A year ago, I would say.
Well, that's not bad.
No,
But
it's not bad.
it's also a long time. Like, you've lived through a long journey to get there.
Yeah. That's why I said 40 years in the desert. People have done it before me and survived through 40 years of
Yeah.
desert.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's a very symbolic number, 40, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like talking to you is different than talking to other people in some way. I don't mean that in like a weird or negative light at all. I mean, there is a kind of mystery about you and an unexpected quality that you bring forth even in conversation that I don't really have a word for. I guess I'm just noticing as well. It sort of baffles me a bit.
Please come up with a word. I need it badly.
It's like, see, you've challenged me. Now I'm going to try to find.
See you in a month.
Yeah, give me some time, for sure.
Okay.
But you definitely, yeah, you have something about you that, like, to me, it says that the paradox of your nature is that you wouldn't bestow necessarily the title of artist on yourself. But I think to many people's standards, they would look at how you express yourself and what you do, and they would unequivocally say, well, artist. But I don't want to force that title on you either, because
It's in the same way that people always say, great, fantastic, absolutely amazing. It's so overused.
Interesting.
Where's good? Where is good? Everything is fantastic. Everything is great. No, it's not. Artist, fantastic.
See, that's...
You have to work for that fantastic work for so long, for 40 years.
That is, I think you've very well articulated your point there. That was a really good way for me. I understand it better. makes me think, am I an artist? Makes me wonder about that. I feel like I devote my life to it in, what I can devote to it outside of, the care of my children and all the things that come with life. But everything does seem to go in this direction for me. Like I couldn't live if I wasn't in communication with the muse, if I wasn't somehow making something that I am in awe of and proud of. If I wasn't doing those things, there is no other. It's like I would cease to exist. And that's,
Yes.
that's tough. So I wonder from a psychological standpoint, what utility it would be for someone to have that in their mind, that they are an artist. If they said, well, I am an artist, are they more likely to behave and get closer to that big A capital artist? Or is it that it also might become a set of blinders, that if they say I am an artist, they will feel as if they've made it and they won't strive to achieve more?
I think it's to do with confidence. I think they're very confident behind this facade of calling themselves an artist. Then they can go on. What if you take this word away? Who they are? They want to be? Are they want to be artists? Are they trying to be an artist? They must call themselves an artist to go on. If it helps, great. If it put you in a box, like not even a box, but put you in a frame where you are something and you're striving towards it, you can call yourself an artist, obviously. I'm just not in frame. I don't want to be.
Well, I respect that. I won't force frame you.
I don't know where I'm going to be in 10 years from now. I used to be a musician. Now I do this thing. I don't know where I'm going to be. Now I'm in illustrator. I became an illustrator with Jordan. Before that, I was a graphic designer.
Yeah. Well, and didn't you work with photos as well? Like,
I was trying to do some work here. I was trying to do some work, but all this came it would fall into the void. I was completely. It wasn't useless. I was wasting myself. I feel like this thing that I was trying for was just wasted, and there was no light in the end. And I was very, very frustrated and angry because there is a lot in me that needs to go somewhere useful. And then I won this contest with Jordan, and things changed for me. I developed this illustration thing while preparing for the contest.
Yeah, this is where you were able to, you were saying earlier in the conversation, taking things, and not that they speak for themselves exactly, but you have a very powerful ability to take things from different places and somehow amalgamate them together as if they were always there together.
Exactly. I want them to look like they always been there, like they were supposed to be, like they meant to be. And I think I'm a collector by nature. I'm collecting words for years. I'm collecting ideas. I'm collecting all these details, and there's like separate boxes. Here are pearls. Here are gems. It's all compartmentalized.
Yeah.
Is that the word? Compartmentalized. So I have those plenty of drawers, talking about drawers. Plenty, hundreds. And I'm just collecting stuff, and they are all there. And when the time comes, boom, 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 meant to be.
That's like Lego. Do you know Lego?
Yes.
I know there's some people who are very, very into Lego. I had a teacher in school who was very, very into Lego, and he allegedly at his home desk had little drawers for each different kind of piece of Lego.
Wow.
so that he would just know, oh, I need a 6x1 or whatever. Bam, it's here. So it was
Wow.
literally, well, the exact physical manifestation of what you described. And I found, and he's someone, yeah, who very much just loves that medium of art, just loves to do it.
I
See,
also met one guy who said, I'm a time collector. He worked with vintage dolls, vintage items. He would take them apart into little parts and collect them, right? And then build something new. And he always said, I'm a time collector.
that's a very clever name.
Right?
I wonder if in many ways this is all we can do. For you, it's so manifest that, you know, your process is looking to other places, categorizing, sort of bringing things into these compartments and then bringing them together. But I wonder if almost that's what any true artist is effectively doing in some capacity, just in their own medium, in their own way. Because, you know, we take influence. You know, I've listened to many artists, many singers, songwriters, and when I'm putting together music, it's not like, I guess, it's not concrete. It's not like I'm taking this line from Gloria Estefan here, and then I'm taking this beat from, you know, like I'm not conscious of it, but there is certainly informed parts of my own personal kind of collection that makes a kind of signature for me, that when I am attacking music in the zone, it manifests perhaps in a similar way, but it's not being visual. It's maybe harder to track for me. I can't see it.
Agree.
See, that's interesting. Where do you go past that? That's very interesting. Well, I think about artisans or artisans, however you pronounce that word, but people who make physical items like these mugs, these delightful mugs.
Yeah.
This one was, I think I'm showing the camera here. This one was handcrafted by a local potter in Edson, I believe, that my neighbors collected and they lend to me for my podcast because they enjoy. Yeah, I'm always drinking and they're like, you need some good mugs. So, but I wonder.
This mug.
Whoa! Here, hold it up a little higher. That's like a broken eggshell.
Yeah.
And can you drink out of it?
Yes.
I love that. I think I'm going to become my own collector of mugs.
You can collect so many things, especially here.
Yeah. And are you a physical collector of sorts? Like,
No.
just up here?
Nope. Just here.
Well,
I love things, though. I love things. My house is all vintage. Everything that bought in the vintage store. Everything. So I am collecting, but not of the same sorts. I'm again collecting large stuff, tiny stuff, attach them together into a room.
You love things. What role does love play in what you're doing?
Love things.
Are you full of love? Do you have a lot of it?
Oh, too much of it.
Too much. Okay.
Too much of it. Yes. I love everything in my house. Everything and everyone and every single thing. And I can't live in an environment when I don't love even a glass. So everything here was collected and carefully chosen.
See, you have such consistency of character. Like, this makes sense to me because, you know, you describe you're such a visual person and, you know, you collect things internally and of course your space would be manifest in a way that you pay attention to each detail, that you see the visual quality of the things around you. Like, of course that makes sense. It's sort of like every step that I get to know you a little bit better in this conversation is like, oh, well, of course, like this follows from the original equation.
My best friend called me a snail. She said, you are inseparable from your house. Wherever you go, you drag your house with it. This is
Yeah, that's your shell.
that's my best friend. That's what she says. That my house is a manifestation of who I am. And if I'm going to put in a different spot to live, I'll die.
Does change not excite you?
No. No. I'm this tree that needs to be in one place.
Well,
all the time.
that makes sense to me as well because of your childhood.
Yes, uprooted.
You were,
I never want to be uprooted again.
yeah. Wow. Yeah. So having the roots is very important to you. I think that my childhood being likely much safer and sounder on the whole than yours, I feel quite driven to novelty. It's taken a long time for me to find peace with the space that I'm in now. This very room has been rearranged a good number of times. This is like I've been in this town for 4 years, 2 different houses in this town. I think this is like the 3rd or 4th studio that I've built in this town because for me, I'm always trying to tweak my environment so that it best suits me. But I've realized too, a bit of it has been discovery in that I'm trying to discover what environment is most conducive to me being me that I love. And I feel how you feel about your home is how very analogously, that's probably a word, I feel about my studio.
It is now.
It is now. Yeah. But not about my whole house, not about everything.
Yeah, your room.
About my room, about this space. And I'm very protective of it, and I'm very careful with what I allow in this space. And I keep it clean. Because I think the analogy of it being you are your environment. So if this place is cluttered, then my brain is cluttered.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Everything is in the perfect order in my house. Otherwise, I can't think.
If your husband moves something 6 inches, would you notice?
But he's like me, luckily. Everybody in my family are like that. All 4 of us. And we all introverted, so it's a big luck. We're all thinking the same way. We are all on top of our things. I have 2 sons, so there's 4 of us. 3 men and me.
Oh, right on. I have 3 daughters. That's funny too, eh? That there's
Good luck.
Yeah. Thanks. You're young too. They're 6, 4, and 1 right now.
You know they grow, right?
I read that somewhere. I couldn't do it without my wife, without help. But I was thinking it's funny, we said earlier that you were really fascinated by men, when you were young. And for me, it was the opposite. It was women. I was really fascinated by women. And yet we both...
I think it's normal.
Oh, likely. But we both grow older, and you've had 2 boys and I've had 3 girls.
Ah.
My grandmother who's Ukrainian, she's since passed, but she told me before I started having children, she said, "You're going to have nothing but girls." And I was like, how do you know?
I don't know.
I know. But she was right.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So besides the world of art, do you have anything else that keeps you going? Do you have anything else that adds joy to your life or vitality?
Coffee.
Amen.
My family.
Coffee and then family. Like coffee.
No, I'm just translating, it's
Yes.
the dragon.
Yeah, you drag it backwards.
Comes the opposite way. Family, art, coffee.
That's the Blessed Trinity right there.
You always quote me
I is there a kind of okay, here's something. I don't even know if I'm going to ask this the right way. I love and care about my family very deeply. I imagine you do for your family as well. Have you ever found a conflict when it comes to the love, nurturing, and care of them versus you being able to be in this other space as a
I know what you mean.
yeah.
No. So what happened to me, I met my husband when I was 14, pretty young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we've been together for 9 years. So we had this relationship for 9 years. Then he left. I came after him.
Like he just jumped out of the room?
Hmm?
Like he just jumped out of the room? Like, what do you mean he left?
Oh, he left to US. We lived in Israel. We met in Israel.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, you didn't know. Okay, so I lived in Latvia for 14 years.
Yeah.
And in 92, we left to Israel. And his family left to Israel from another place in Soviet Union. And we met when we were 14 on the street.
Mm.
So we were dating. We've been together for 9 years in Israel.
Right.
Then he left to New York. And I followed him. We got married and had kids. So the story is we've been for 9 years outside of the family frame. So we had this thing together.
Right.
Then we worked really hard on keeping what we had and having a new frame. So we would always come out of the frame, be together, come back to the frame, be parent and a mother. Because we were together, not as parents for so long, it's very easy for us. We're dating every week. That's what Jordan says.
Yeah.
We've done it for God knows how many years, 20 years. So we are together and parents. What was the question? So for me, it was different because my family is not just something that happened. It's a long story rooted in my childhood. So my family is way more to me than for anybody else, I suppose. And my kids were born out of love. They were raised in love, this thing that we had. And then art became my thing, but in a frame of two of us together. So I can't say...
They're not in conflict.
No, the other way around. I wouldn't have it if not us.
That's great. I think you framed like... Going to be tricky how I say this. I don't want to imply I've had a troublesome marriage because I haven't. I've had a good marriage. But I think that you've outlined what would be a solution for some of the problems that have naturally come up. In that, for me and my wife, we have the frame of us as parents as the definite primary place that we are together. We have much less of a frame of this beforehand, us being separate. And so trying to have an established life that in many ways has nothing to do with the kids, is just about our relationship. That's something we're working on. And I think that if I were to work on that even more, would make what is already a fairly happy marriage even happier.
Yeah, you have to reconcile the two.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. See, that it doesn't conflict for you is a big deal, because a lot of people who are aspiring artists, they think it's going to conflict in massive ways. They're afraid of responsibility. They're afraid of family. They're afraid of, for many women, they're afraid of getting pregnant and what that will mean for them physically. And for many men, they're afraid of getting someone pregnant and what that will mean for their commitments and responsibilities. Like everybody, it's so common. There's people that I've talked to privately in the artist sphere, in places like Los Angeles and stuff, who have told me that they really wish it wasn't this way, but that if they started having kids now, it would be like they feel as if doomed for their career.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't think that's always true. I think it's true if you were to let it, if you were to look at it in that light and make it happen, it would be true. But I think that there is a way that, being a mother, being a father, a husband, a wife, they augment and complement your art. And I really think that many artists, there's many potential artists, people who have an immense predisposition, an immense proclivity. They're so in tune with the dream world, like they have this connection, but they don't have the life experience necessarily to say or add something of value. And they are then conflicted because they think, boy, I want to be an artist, and so I got to devote all my time and money and energy into this and not have a family, when in reality, maybe having a family is the gut punch they need to get that wake-up call and realize what they need to say. They need to go through some real experience. And I think that you stand out in many ways as someone with affinity for art, because you have had many a gut punch. You've had lots of life, even though challenging at times. Seems like you've had extreme lows and extreme highs, like you've
Lows, no highs.
no highs.
Extreme lows and then lower and lower and then higher a bit. No, but the person I'm with is magical and my kids are magical. So how can it not contribute?
Mm.
Everything I see as art, as what I create. They're part of it.
Yeah. Well, and with your children, I imagine you had a hand in actually creating them.
That's what I mean. I'm seeing it as a whole. I can't divide the two. My family is not some role. It's not some part of my life. It's the base.
What's something that you wish you knew when you were younger?
Wrong person. I knew everything.
That's the first time I've had that answer.
I know. I wish people did not interfere with my thinking, trying to teach me things, because that would take me off course.
Well, you were at the mercy of many adults around you, right? Because you went into this musical school. I don't think you had a choice in it, right?
No, it wasn't like that. It's not the way I presented it exactly. Maybe it sounded like that, but my parents were jazz musicians, both of them, prior to me being born. Then things happen. In Soviet Union, you can't remain to be a musician and having a family. So my dad had to quit, but they were both jazz players. So you can imagine the atmosphere at home. I've been born into an amazing connection between two people. Then life happened, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened to me because at 2, I went to kindergarten, I went to school, and so on and so on. But prior to that, I was born into this haven of 2 musicians.
That's got to be very different. Well, and not just musicians, jazz musicians. They're I think in many ways some of the most mysterious forms of music. They really can let themselves go and explore the landscape musically. Like there's in many ways less structure at times. They can go on these long tangents into different places and different rooms, and then they can come back, and then you're like, oh wow, that was great. Now we're here again. Many other genres are often very structured, and some genres are very meticulously.
Yes, makes sense. They were very experimental at everything, not just music. They were very experimental at parenting as well. They gave me a true meaning of freedom, something you don't get in Soviet Union. And you were born into this amazing atmosphere, and then you go into school. Forget about it.
Then school is troublesome.
Well, torturous, abusive, very abusive at the age of 3. It wasn't school. What do you call it? Before kindergarten, you go to playroom.
Okay. Yeah, play.
Is that what you call it?
Day home, daycare, something like that.
Kindergarten for 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Abusive. That's Russia. But I was always thinking, how did I know what to strive for? How did I know that I have to battle for my freedom? How did I have this freedom in the first place? It's my parents. Which is absurd. If you think about it, in Soviet Union, there were no people like that. You would never meet them.
So it was it was like a stroke of luck. I don't know if there's a better word for it. Like a huge, you were in the luckiest place in one of the most unluckiest places.
Yeah, and I was trying to survive and keep it and recreate it later.
Well, thank God for your parents.
Yes, I always felt that way.
Yeah, I think that we don't often give our parents, in a general sense, enough credit.
Mm-hmm. We're too absorbed into this role of being a kid for all our life, and they would provide it because they would agree to be your parent forever. Unless you say, I don't want to be a kid anymore. Mm-hmm. I want to know you as a person and think of you as a person. Tell me what happened before I was born.
Suddenly the whole world opens up.
Then you're having a conversation, a real one. No roles.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know who you are. I think roles are very limiting. Mama, Papa.
I feel very inspired to tell you this short anecdote about my grandma.
Hmm?
I feel
the
like
Ukrainian one?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I feel like, and I don't think she was pure Ukrainian. Like there was a bit of a mix going on there, but I know that her grandmother was like Ukrainian, like pierogies off the boat kind of thing. And she often cooked with my grandmother cooked with her grandmother, and she learned a lot and had a strong affinity for her. My grandma's name was Marianne Kizminski. And what happened with her towards the end of her life, in fact, I think it was the last lucid conversation that she and I had, and she was suffering a lot, and she was in a long-term care facility that was assisting her with things that she needed, hygiene and all sorts of stuff, because she was effectively bedridden and could be wheelchaired around sometimes. And COVID had started too, and so there was restrictions, and it was just a terrible circumstance. And she seemed to be out of it quite a bit. But when I visited her, we talked and we had a very frank conversation, and she was really with it. And I asked her, because it was so obvious that she was near to death, or a lot nearer than she had been. I wanted to know what she was thinking about, what kind of things had been going through her mind.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I've been thinking a lot about my childhood. And she thought very frequently of a time when she was a very little girl, 6 or 7 or something, when she was coming home from school on the bus, or not on the bus, coming home from school, and there was a couple of older boys who were supposed to walk her home. And this was Saskatchewan, wide open, Saskatchewan, I think. Fort Saskatchewan, I don't remember. But it was wide open woodland in lots of places. And the boys thought it would be funny to lead her into the woods and then run away from her, to leave her there, to be lost. Yeah. And she had nightmares for the rest of her life about being lost in those woods sometimes. And she was thinking, and I remember just being so struck that she was thinking about this on what was near to her deathbed. She was thinking about being that small child lost in those woods. And I
Wow.
didn't have words for it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always, it holds a strong place. It holds a big space in me somewhere, that story.
I have a similar story. I found out what happened to my relatives during the Second World War when I was 6 or 7 from my grandmother. There were 40 people, they were killed in woods, and she described how. So all my life, from that moment, I was trying to imagine how is it to die in a gas chamber, out of breath. I was actually trying to hold my breath and go through what they went through since I was 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Same happened when I watched, let's say, my first movie. The first movie that I watched, I was 5, was not Tom Sawyer. It was,
Huckleberry Finn?
it's the other one, and there is
Oliver Twist.
Oliver Twist.
I got it. Right on.
Yeah, it was my first movie, so I was always trying to imagine how is it to be him. That's when I started to collect all these details, I think, about people. There's a collection. Oh, there's another collection. I was never thinking about it. It's the emotions of every single person I've met or seen.
Man. That is fascinating.
I'm working right now on a project I'm not allowed to talk about, but I'm working on creating characters, many characters.
Archetypal
And
characters?
I just realized there was a huge collection in me that I wasn't aware of, because I can create 100 images, characters with story behind them.
That's really interesting.
Because I realized that all my life I was trying to experience what everybody experienced.
So I think it's evident to me that you are a kind of tool. You're a kind of instrument.
Yeah.
That you have been given these experiences and stories, brutal as they come and beautiful as they come. You've got this rich ability to channel them into something. And I would say that because you're that way, and you've been that way since a small child, and you get better at it and more in touch with the muse, or the ability to communicate these things, if at the end of your life you are not considered an artist with a capital A, I would say then no one else is an artist. So I know you're not great with compliments, but I truly feel that way. And don't let it get to your head, because that's probably not you. And I know it wouldn't get there, but I really think that's the case. You are being an instrument in some way, and you don't have to call yourself an artist. You don't have to be an artist, but that you are striving towards it. I do feel it's like a seek and you'll find situation, and you're already on the path to doing what many people dream and wish they could do.
Thank you.
No problem. I guess there's nothing else to say to that, hey? I also feel like we should wrap our conversation time-wise, but there's more there that I want to understand, but I just know I probably won't understand it, and I'm just sort of, I'd like to leave the mystery there, I guess, a bit.
Good choice.
And I thank you very much for your time. I really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
I'm glad.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you found any of this valuable, please consider subscribing, recommending this to a friend, or leaving a positive review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you happen to be listening. If you watch this on my Servant YouTube channel or Facebook page, please leave a comment and share. I love to hear from my listeners and learn from them. Learn more about me at www.servant.com. That's SRVENT.com. Thank you again for your time. Now go be creative and sane.